Richard sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the TV screen with wide, unblinking eyes. His hands trembled as he gripped the edge of his desk. The news anchor's voice echoed in his ears like thunder. Today, the world's newest self-made billionaire is none other than Amara Benson, founder of the fastest-growing fashion empire. Her net worth has officially crossed $1 billion, making her one of the richest women in the world. Richard's heart pounded. His mouth went dry. The woman on the screen, dazzling in a designer gown, was his wife. No, his ex-wife. A reporter held a microphone to her, asking, "Amara, can you tell us how it all started? What inspired this billion-dollar empire?" Amara let out a soft chuckle, her eyes shining with confidence. "Well, funny story, my husband at the time didn't believe in my idea. He said it was silly, unrealistic, and a waste of time. So, I built it without him." Richard's face turned pale. He knew exactly what moment she was talking about. That night. That argument. The moment he rejected her idea. And now, she was a billionaire, while he was drowning in debt. His grip tightened around his whiskey glass. He never imagined that saying no to his wife's dream would be the biggest mistake of his life. 2 years earlier, Amara sat across from Richard at the dinner table, excitement glowing in her eyes. "I have an idea," she said, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. "A business idea. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time." Richard, distracted by his phone, barely looked up. What is it?" "Customized African-inspired fashion," she said. "Handmade clothes, shoes, and bags with modern designs but using traditional African fabrics. I've already made some samples, and people love them. Imagine, an entire fashion brand that brings our culture to the world." Richard finally looked at her and burst into laughter. Wait, are you serious?" he asked, shaking his head. "Amara, you have a degree in business. Why would you waste time sewing clothes like some street tailor?" Amara's smile faltered. "It's not just sewing, Richard. It's fashion. A movement. A brand that represents African elegance. I know it will work." Richard leaned back, sighing. "Babe, I love you, but this isn't a real business. It's a hobby. You think people will actually spend big money on that? Who will buy African prints when they can get designer brands?" "Many people," Amara insisted. "I've done my research. African culture is trending globally. People want unique, handmade designs, and I have the creativity to make it happen. I just need some capital to start." Richard scoffed. "So that's what this is about? You want me to invest? How much?" "Just $5,000 to start," she said. "I'll handle the marketing and sales. I just need help with materials and production." Richard nearly choked on his drink. $5,000. For fabrics and sewing machines? Amara, be serious. I'm not wasting my money on something that will fail in 6 months. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "So, you don't believe in me?" "I believe in you, but not in this," Richard said, standing up. "Find something else. Something that actually makes sense." That night, Amara lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What if he was wrong? What if she was right? The next morning, Richard left for work without another word about the idea. And that was the moment Amara made a decision that would change everything. If he wouldn't invest in her, she would invest in herself. Amara didn't have much money, but she had passion. She started small, using the little savings she had to buy fabric. She designed clothes by hand, stitching them herself in the small corner of their apartment. She spent hours online, learning about branding, social media marketing, and e-commerce. She created a website, posted on Instagram, and shared her designs. Slowly, customers began to trickle in. At first, Richard barely noticed. He assumed she would give up eventually. But then, things started to change. Her sales increased. Orders started coming in from different countries. Influencers began reaching out. And then, something unexpected happened. A famous African-American actress wore one of Amara's dresses to an event, and it went viral. Within hours, Amara's website crashed from too much traffic. Messages flooded in. The demand was overwhelming. One evening, Richard came home to find Amara sitting on the floor, surrounded by piles of fabric, packaging boxes, and an overflowing order list. "Amara, what the hell is this?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "Orders," she said, grinning. "I just made more money this week than I made in 6 months at my old job." Richard frowned. "Wait, so this thing is actually working?" Amara smiled, but there was something in her eyes, something different. "Oh, it's just getting started." As Amara's business grew, so did the tension in their marriage. Richard didn't like that she was making money without him. He didn't like that she was too busy for him. He didn't like that people were suddenly praising her, while he remained stuck in the same place. One night, after another heated argument, Richard made a decision. "You have to choose, Amara. This business or our marriage." Amara stared at him, her heart pounding. She loved him. She truly did. But this? This was who she was meant to be. She took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. "I choose myself." Richard's face twisted in shock. "What?" "I choose my business. I choose my dream." His jaw clenched. "Then I guess this marriage is over." Amara swallowed the lump in her throat, holding back tears. This was it. Richard turned away, grabbing his keys. "You'll regret this," he said, storming out. Little did he know, he was the one who would regret it. The door slammed behind Richard, and silence filled the room. Amara stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. She had just lost her husband. For a moment, she wondered if she had made a mistake. If she had fought harder for her marriage, would things have turned out differently? Then she looked around. Piles of fabric. Stacks of packaging boxes. Her laptop, still open to her website, where dozens of new orders were rolling in by the minute. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was her future. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She had already lost Richard. She wasn't going to lose herself, too. Richard didn't come home that night. Or the next. Days turned into weeks, and before Amara knew it, the divorce papers arrived at her doorstep. There was no long conversation, no begging for her to come back. Richard had made his choice, just as she had made hers. She stared at the papers, her hands trembling. The man who once swore to love her forever was now just a signature away from being a stranger. But she didn't hesitate. She signed the papers, sealed them in an envelope, and sent them back the same day. When Richard received them, he scoffed. She didn't even hesitate, he muttered to himself. Something about that stung more than he expected. But he shook it off. She'll regret it, he told himself. She'll come back when she realizes she can't do this on her own. Except, she didn't. Amara threw herself into her business. With nothing holding her back, she worked harder than ever. She expanded her team, found better suppliers, and partnered with tailors across Africa to create high-quality designs. She spent long nights designing, marketing, and perfecting every detail. And it paid off. Her business exploded. Celebrities wore her designs. Magazines featured her story. Influencers promoted her brand. Within a year, she had moved from her tiny apartment to a sleek office in the heart of the city. And Richard? He heard about her success everywhere. Every time he scrolled through social media, there she was, his ex-wife, smiling in a designer suit, standing in front of a luxury store that bore her name. He tried to ignore it. It's just hype. It won't last. But it did last. And it only got bigger. One evening, Richard sat at a bar with his friends when her face appeared on the TV. The fashion mogul Amara Benson has just announced a groundbreaking partnership with luxury brand Dior. This deal is expected to make her one of the wealthiest fashion designers in the world. The entire bar erupted in cheers. But Richard felt like the walls were closing in on him. He downed his drink and stormed out. His heart was pounding, but not from anger. From regret. Amara, meanwhile, was in Paris for the biggest business meeting of her life. She walked into the Dior headquarters, her head held high, dressed in one of her own stunning designs. As she took her seat, the CEO smiled. "Amara, your brand is the future. We'd be honored to work with you." She smiled back. This was just the beginning. Richard sat in his cramped office, staring blankly at his computer screen. The numbers on the financial report made his stomach twist. His business was barely surviving. He rubbed his temples, trying to ignore the whispers around him. "Did you see Amara on Forbes? She's a billionaire now. I heard she's launching stores in London and New York. Man, imagine rejecting a billion-dollar idea. That guy must be kicking himself." He clenched his fists. Of course, they were talking about him. At first, he ignored the news of Amara's success. He told himself it was temporary, a stroke of luck. But as time passed, it became undeniable. She was everywhere. Billboards. Fashion magazines. TV interviews. The world had fallen in love with Amara Benson. And the worst part? She didn't even acknowledge him. Not once. She acted as if he never existed. One evening, as Richard sat alone in his apartment, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an old friend. "Hey man, crazy story, you and Amara are trending on Twitter. Someone found an old interview where she mentioned you rejecting her business idea. People are calling you the dumbest ex-husband in history." Richard's heart sank. He quickly opened Twitter. His name was everywhere. Imagine being the guy who told Amara Benson her business would fail. Her ex-husband really fumbled the biggest bag in history. Richard must be punching the air right now. Thousands of memes flooded the internet. Some showed Amara's billion-dollar empire next to a picture of a man crying in the rain. Others had screenshots of her viral interviews with captions like, "My ex said no. So I said bye." His stomach twisted. He couldn't take it anymore. He needed to talk to her. Richard spent weeks trying to contact Amara. But she ignored his calls. She ignored his emails. She ignored his apology messages. Desperation clawed at him. One day, he showed up at her office unannounced. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "I don't need one," Richard said. "Just tell Amara that Richard is here." The woman gave him a blank look. "Richard who?" His chest tightened. Her ex-husband. The receptionist typed something on her computer, then looked up. "Sorry, Mr. Benson, but Ms. Amara doesn't take unannounced visits." Richard's jaw clenched. "Look, just tell her I'm here. She'll see me." The woman sighed, picked up the phone, and spoke quietly. A few moments later, she hung up and smiled politely. Ms. Amara said, and I quote, "I don't know a Richard." The words hit him like a slap. He stood there, frozen. The receptionist looked at him with sympathy, but there was nothing else to say. Slowly, Richard turned and walked out of the building. For the first time in his life, he realized something. He had lost her forever. And it was all his fault. Richard sat in his car outside Amara's towering corporate building, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He replayed the receptionist's words in his head. Ms. Amara said, and I quote, "I don't know a Richard." The words felt like a dagger straight to his heart. How had it come to this? The woman he once called his wife had erased him from her life as if he had never existed. But he couldn't blame her. He had been the one who told her she would fail. He had been the one who walked away. And now, she had proven him wrong in the most brutal way possible. A knock on his car window startled him. It was a security guard. "Sir, you've been parked here for too long. You need to leave." Richard sighed and nodded, turning the ignition. But as he drove off, a thought burned in his mind. I can't let this be the end. I have to talk to her. I have to fix this. For weeks, Richard tried to find a way to see Amara. He sent her flowers. They were returned. He emailed her. No response. He even tried messaging her assistant, but he was met with a simple reply. Ms. Benson is unavailable. Richard was running out of options. Then, he saw it. An upcoming gala in New York City, one of the biggest fashion events of the year. And Amara was the guest of honor. If he couldn't reach her in private, he would do it in public. Richard stood in front of the massive event hall, dressed in his best suit. The red carpet was buzzing with cameras and reporters. Luxury cars pulled up, and celebrities stepped out, dazzling in high-end fashion. And then, the moment came. A sleek black Rolls-Royce arrived. The crowd erupted as Amara stepped out, looking breathtaking in a custom-made gown from her own fashion line. Flashes of cameras lit up the night as reporters rushed to capture her arrival. Richard's heart pounded. This was his chance. As she walked toward the entrance, he pushed through the crowd. Amara. She didn't stop. Amara, please, just 1 minute. This time, she turned. Her gaze met his, but there was no emotion. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even recognition. Just indifference. It was like looking at a stranger. Richard swallowed hard. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. The cameras flashed. The reporters whispered. But Amara simply tilted her head and gave a small, polite smile. Sorry for what? She asked. Richard blinked. For everything. For not believing in you. For not supporting you. She let out a soft chuckle. Oh, Richard. I let go of that a long time ago. His stomach twisted. So, can we talk? He asked. Amara glanced at the crowd of reporters and smiled as if he were just another fan. There's nothing left to talk about. With that, she turned and walked away. Richard stood frozen as the doors closed behind her. And in that moment, reality hit him like a brick. She didn't need him. She never did. And now, she had moved on. For good. Richard stood outside the gala entrance, watching the security guards close the doors behind Amara. The flashes of cameras had faded. The reporters had moved on. And he was left standing there, alone. It was over. He had chased a second chance, but it was clear, Amara had erased him from her life. He wanted to scream, to turn back time, to undo the biggest mistake of his life. But regret was a cruel thing. It never changed the past. It only tortured the present. Slowly, Richard turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. The next morning, Richard sat in his tiny office, staring at his computer. His business was failing. His debts were piling up. His personal life was a disaster. And then, as if the universe wasn't done punishing him, his phone buzzed. A news article. Amara Benson engaged to tech billionaire Ethan Carter. Richard's breath caught in his throat. He clicked the link, and there it was, a picture of Amara, glowing with happiness, standing beside one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs. A sparkling diamond ring sat on her finger. The article praised her for building a billion-dollar empire on her own and finding love again with a man who supported her dreams. Richard's heart sank. It was official. She had not only moved on, she had moved up. And Richard? He was just a footnote in her past. Weeks passed, and Richard barely left his apartment. His life had become a cycle of regret. One evening, as he scrolled through social media, he came across a viral post. It was a clip from an old interview where Amara was asked about the biggest lesson she had learned in her journey. She smiled and said, "Never let anyone tell you your dreams are too small. If they don't believe in you, don't waste your time proving them wrong, just prove yourself right." Richard exhaled slowly, the weight of her words crushing him. He had laughed at her dream. He had walked away when she needed support. And now? She had built an empire without him. She had found love without him. And he had lost everything. As he closed his laptop and sat in the silence of his empty apartment, Richard finally accepted the truth. He was the biggest mistake of Amara Benson's life. And that was a mistake he would never escape.